Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Today I want to give an analysis of this huge explosion that happened in Lebanon. And this is exactly when I was talking about in my previous videos about the saying of the Prophet ﷺ about that there will be a dark night in which it will be better for people to be in their houses, one event after another event after another event. And let me just start by something extremely important. And you should spread this video, because this information, especially because it needs to go to Lebanon, because what's happening is that after this explosion there is poison in the gas, and people are out trying to help other people, but the air is filled with poison. Okay, so let's first look at this. This whole atmosphere is filled with gas. I'm going to tell you in a second. One Lebanese brother, may Allah have mercy on him, says, "My name is Kareem. I'm living in Lebanon. Most people are down in the streets trying to help everyone. But a serious message needs to be sent. The smoke is filled with nitric acid. Red, pink, purple smoke. It is toxic to people, and they need to get out of the streets. Maybe you could help spread awareness about this. The level of destruction and the impact of the explosion is huge. Half of Beirut is on fire." Okay? And people are inhaling toxic fumes that is killing them. So this is very important. Of course, Israel is going to deny that it did anything, but it sends out this weird tweet, like really weird, okay? Prime Minister Netanyahu says, now all of you know Hezbollah is a party that is very anti-Zionist, that is called Hezbollah, that lives and controls a lot of Lebanon. So, the Prime Minister says, we hit a cell, and now we hit the dispatchers. We hit the cell, and we hit the dispatchers. Dispatchers are the people that are dispatching. "We will do what is necessary in order to defend ourselves, and I suggest to them all, including Hezbollah, to consider this." This was written about 8 hours ago, approximately, give and take. It'd be obviously more now. And also he wrote, these are not vain words. Okay, he writes, they have the weight of the state of Israel and the IDF behind them. This should be taken seriously. So this is what Netanyahu writes, a tweet. He tweets this, and then what happens? So BBC says, unfounded claims spread on social media. He is also dismissed, so Israel, talking about the Israeli, dismissed allegations that Israel was to blame. An Israeli minister has said, refuted suggestions that the country had something to do with this. Okay? And in fact, Lebanon itself is saying, yes, this was a facility that had explosives, but it did not have explosives that can be felt in other countries. That's how loud it was. I'm going to get to that. But here, this is the thing you have to understand, that if you're trying to cover your tracks, there is no better place to cover your tracks than to cause an explosion where there is already explosives. You see? And so, now let me, because you have to understand some things about this, okay? You have to understand some things about this. The timing of this, the location of this, who benefits from all of this, right? All of that points to one thing, and I'm going to get to that. And and so let us look at
but they are in there. Other than that, the number of injuries we've seen is unbelievably large. All hospitals in Beirut are overwhelmed. I'll take you inside one of the halls. This is supposed to be usually more like of an administrative aisle of the ER. This wasn't supposed.
So the hospitals are completely overwhelmed. Okay. Now also consider this. So when there's a nuclear attack, right? There's a mini nuclear attack. Not only does it form the mushroom clouds, but it disintegrates everything around it. That doesn't happen in normal explosions, okay? You see these buildings around you? All of these buildings around this area, around this port, have all been disintegrated. They have disintegrated, okay? These are those buildings from the heat of the explosions, like far off, miles away. Everything is just like melted down, okay? Broken windows. I'm going to come to that in a second. You see where Lebanon is? The port? You see where Cyprus is? Okay? That's a different country. And they felt the shock waves. So this is not just any normal explosion, okay? This is kind of like, since the coronavirus epidemic, whatever you want to call it. Since then, what has happened is they just lie to you and say illogical things. Illogical things. They expect us to believe it because they're saying it, and we don't have masses that think deeply enough. If I tell you under normal circumstances that there was an explosion in a port that is under dispute between Israel and Lebanon, and there was a big explosion there, that another country heard it, and it was because there were explosives stored there, not because somebody tried to take advantage of the situation that was already bad in Lebanon. No, that wasn't it. It wasn't that, Israel was already upset with Lebanon. It wasn't that Israel is already trying to provoke a proxy war with Iran and trying to get to Iran. No, it's none of that. It's not that Israel has been trying to provoke Iran with mini nuclear attacks at its nuclear facilities and cyber attacks at its nuclear facilities. No, not that. Israel cannot have done this. This was just a big mistake where there was explosive somewhere, and boom, it happened. This whole destruction. And you know where this is? Right in the middle of the port. Even if you confiscate it, as they're saying, and you wouldn't put it in the middle where there's, cranes working and all these things happening. It doesn't make sense to me, at least. It doesn't make sense. Okay. By the way, I don't know if you know, there's a dua of the Prophet ﷺ he gave us during the end of times. He said, when you see the hadd, go into sujood. Go into sujood at that time. When you see something like this is what the Prophet told us, ﷺ. I'll be showing that hadith one day soon. Go into sujood and do tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what the Prophet told us, ﷺ. I'll give you the exact tasbih later. But let us first see what is being said on Twitter. Okay? Let us see what is being said on Twitter. Now I want us to analyze exactly what happened, because there's two phases. There is there's a smoke, and there is it's obviously, in order to cover your tracks, a perfect place would be where there's already explosives, right? And well, then there is explosives, and those explosives were burning. Clearly you can see that in the cloud. Now notice, as you will see this, now notice this. So it's burning, it's burning, it's burning. You see the fire in the building? It's burning, it's burning, it's burning, and then boom! Boom! That is, yeah, there were explosives there, and then people are like, in lava, like, oh yeah, there were explosives there. That's why this boom, big thing happened. But I wonder if there's more to this, if there's even a picture that tells us something more than this. And now, all of a sudden, the media is releasing these pictures, right? Like Beirut, precision guided. Maybe there's a speech Netanyahu gave at some point, right? That they could do this. There's a site 1, there's a site 2, and there's the Beirut airport being in this why? This is the thing. Normally what would happen in the media is they always want to look for somebody to blame. But then CNN and BBC, they specifically say, don't blame Israel, don't blame Israel. Israel didn't do this. But at the same time, Netanyahu is tweeting things that's like, we're going to get you. And then the media is resurfacing with these pictures, right, showing how they planned to have a precision-guided attack on Israel. A precision-guided attack on Beirut in Lebanon. I just want to take, inshallah, just 1 minute talking about the Arabic class that I want to give starting at the beginning of next month. And the timings and everything, I'm going to work that out. Just so everybody knows, the book I think we have decided to go with, I have put a link to that book in our website, the MahdiInstitute.com. Let me go ahead and show that to you. So if you go to MahdiInstitute.com and you click on books, if you're registered, then if you just click on Quranic Arabic, it will, you can log in if you have your account. Okay, I'm going to log in very quickly here, and let's see if this works. Sorry. So now I can go under books, and I can click under Quranic Arabic, and I can download the book that I will be using for this. Okay, and so for those of you who want to know more, read the description in the comment section about the Arabic language, the classes that I inshallah will be holding for that. There is a small fee of $20 per month. It'll be 4 months long. What I'm going to be doing is going over Surah Al-Kahf, because it has to do with the end times, the times that we live in. It's a very important surah in general anyway, but I'll be going over Surah Al-Kahf. We'll be doing the entire tafsir of Surah Al-Kahf. We'll understand things in quite some detail in Surah Al-Kahf, but we'll also be doing the vocab of Surah Al-Kahf, and we'll also be doing the grammar. And the way I will be doing it is that, one class will be on vocab and tafsir, and the other class will be on the tafsir. One will be on vocabulary and tafsir, and the other will be on grammar. Tafsir will be there always. I will always be going over the tafsir, but this is the book that I'm going to use for now, unless I change my mind in the next month. Right now, I'm working on what technologies am I going to be using, how much is it going to be costing me, and trying to play with different technologies and seeing what was working, because this is the first time I'm doing this. I want to limit the amount of mistakes I make, so inshallah that's why I'm giving myself a whole month to prepare, so that when it finally comes to time, and then everyone that is signed up will also I want to mention, when you come here you can, if you go to where it says where you will find online classes, let me just move this. Let me go home here, and if you go to learning, under learning, you'll be able to click on learn Quranic Arabic, and you can sign up to for the classes when you go over here. Okay, and just click on this, and it should take you to a form that helps you register for the class if you're interested. And then you just fill out this form, and inshallah then you register. If you cannot, I'll put an email also where you can just send me an email where you're interested in taking these classes. I know several people have complained and they've just sent me the email, which is fine. And just give me like about half a week or a week, and I will be sending out emails with all the details, the proper timing and everything. And we will have one event where we can all just come on and do like a test. It'll be, you have 30 minutes where we can ask each other questions and talk, and any questions people might have, they can ask me at that time, inshallah. So I'm just putting this in here so that everyone knows what's going on. Yes, I am offering Arabic classes, and my goal, inshallah, is very, very strongly, and it's not the first time, alhamdulillah, I've done this. My goal will be that by the end of these 4 months, right, there will be 2 classes a week. I'm thinking either 1.5 hour class each, or 1 hour 15 minutes with a 10-minute break. So we go straight 45 minutes, 50 minutes per class, take a 10-minute break, go make your chai, use the bathroom, whatever you got to do, and then reconvene after 10 minutes, and then after that I'll go over the same class but in a shorter amount of time, adding some more stuff, or maybe just whatever is needed for the rest of the, I think it'll be like 50 minutes, then 10, so that's 60, so then we have 15-20 minutes to kind of like wrap everything up. So that's one thing I'll be doing. The other thing I'm thinking of doing is that, depending upon how many people there are, maybe I can just create a WhatsApp group per country, where everyone, or like there will be one for brothers and one for sisters, and then per location or per number of people, where I can communicate easily with you. So throughout the week, I might send out something that's an example of something I talked about. Inshallah, it will be good. So if you're interested, and if you can't afford, then that's still okay, because I see my experiences whenever I've taught classes for free, people drop out. Okay, but when I charge, people, it's like your heart is where your investments are. I mean, that's just a fact. Okay, and so if you give $20, inshallah, then Allah will put that barakah in that sadaqah, because I'm going to use a lot of that money to invest in future technologies, future things, future projects I want to do, inshallah ta'ala. So yes, so inshallah, this is where we are. So please register, look at the description, look at the comment section. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Beirut governor is literally crying while talking about the explosions, who likens them to Nagasaki and Hiroshima attacks. Now, of course, this is not like Nagasaki and Hiroshima, because if it was, no one would even be there, and no one would be able to even make reports there. This was a missile attack that definitely had an aspect to it that had the mushroom clouds and all of that. It was like, because what is the new technology is not about the big blowing up of entire cities like they did in the past. The new technology is about hitting buildings with nuclear weapons and completely demolishing it, completely eradicating it, and mini nuclear attacks. This is where the new technology is. So here's a close-up picture that should give you an idea of where this took place. Now, there are people that are saying that there were 2 blasts. I'm going to show that in a second, but look at this building and this one over here. This is now 10 miles away from the explosion where they're seeing this. Okay, 10 miles away. This is 10 miles away where they're seeing this. Prophet ﷺ did dua for the people of Lebanon, keeping that in mind. So, I was saying 10 miles away, 10 kilometers away, I'm sorry. My brother sent me this. We live 10 kilometers away from the explosion site, and the glass of our buildings shattered. The Prophet did dua for these people. And what is being said is, just a reminder, 1/5 of Lebanon's total population are refugees. A small country collapsing under a series of calamities is coping with more than any current Western civilization could imagine. And who is their biggest enemy? I will come to that. This is devastating. Lebanon was already spiraling out of control because of the economic. And in the midst of a political and currency crisis with accelerating COVID-19 cases, people were going hungry. And that's the city's largest grain elevator right there. Meaning this explosion happened where basically 1 year's worth of food supply was. Okay? Then Joyce Karim breaking explosions in Beirut. 2 explosions, not 1, 2 explosions. One at port, one inside Beirut. Reports it's near the ex-Prime Minister Heron's residence in the inner city. This Prime Minister that was, I believe, he has a court case too. I think he was killed. Very loud sound shook the city, the houses. This week is international tribunal verdict for killing of Rafiq Hariri. Okay, so all these things are, the timing of it is perfect for covering your tracks. The place of it is perfect for covering your tracks. Okay, so one person tweets, as smoke clears, port of Beirut devastated, added to casualties, billions of imports because it's a port, right? And ports have a military and economic strategic position. Billions of imports, including national wheat silos, seem to have been eviscerated. Homes shattered for miles. Damages will be massive and could not come at a worse time when everyone is broke and hungry. So, please do dua. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help the Muslims of Lebanon, help them in their individual and collective difficulties. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make things easy for them, inshallah. Now let us continue, inshallah. By the way, this type of explosion where it's boom all of a sudden, right? That's usually a missile attack. Like a really fast missile that attacks it. And these things might come out in the coming days. Okay? So when you have two explosions simultaneously. But to be fair to Israel not behind Beirut blast. Sources say on both sides. One side is saying, yes, this was a place, there were weapons there. And the other side is saying, yeah, we didn't do it. But when you look deeper, you might get a different picture. But that's what Israel is saying. Let's forget about the fact that they were planning to attack them. There's no doubt about that. And let's also forget about the threats Israel just gave a few hours before this whole event happened. Right? From the Prime Minister of Israel. Okay? We hit a cell, and now we hit the dispatchers. We will do what is necessary in order to defend ourselves. I suggest to them, all of them, including Hezbollah, to consider this. So, in addition to the fact of exploration into near the Lebanese waters, into their natural gas, into their oil fields near there, Israel approves exploration. And of course it would have nothing to do that because Israel is a very tolerant country. You know what I mean? Can you think of a more tolerant country than Israel? The impact of oil and natural discoveries on Lebanese in Israeli conflict, right? So this is something that has been going on for a while. And so here we are. This is also, how Israel, now you see, Israel has its navy along the shore of Lebanon and doing sanctions on Lebanon. Of course, Israel would never think of doing such a bad thing to Lebanon because it has, it has absolutely nothing to gain, no benefits to gain from this. It's annexing, other people's lands, but it would never do it to Lebanon. It would never try to weaken Lebanon. It would never try to weaken Syria. This is, Israel would never do such a thing. And the interesting thing is that, of course, if you're going to do something like this, you're going to do it in a way that covers your tracks. You're going to try to find a place that when it blows up, they're like, well, this already had explosives here. Of course, part of this is to push Iran's buttons, right? Iran says it supports Lebanon, warns Israel against madness. Now, what is the point of all of this? Why did Israel, the thing is that this is going to lead Lebanon into an internal conflict. And you already have a currency war going between the US and China. So there's this currency war going on. And in the middle of coronavirus and these currency wars where America's saying China is, the bad guy, and China is like, America's the bad guy. And they're both saying, you're a bad guy. And the other is saying, no, you're the bad guy. In the middle of this currency war, in the middle of while everyone is, sick and tired of coronavirus, just wants to get rid of it. And they'll probably give in to the vaccinations very happily when it finally does end, so that they can go back to normal, right? In all of this, Israel does what? It starts annexing lands from the West Bank, starts taking steps towards Al-Aqsa, starts taking bigger and bigger steps towards Al-Aqsa. Not that, and now, it already created confusion in Syria, wars and internal conflicts in Syria. It has pulled Turkey into these conflicts also. Now Lebanon had, after Iran, probably the second strongest, resistance to Israel, and what it is doing is in Lebanon. So that second strongest resistance, Iran has been hit, as you know, in its nuclear facilities, and now Lebanon has been hit. And of course, we could never say that Israel benefits from all of this. We could never say that, because Israel has denied that it did it, and therefore it means they didn't do it. And how dare I say that Israel did this? Because, there's no real evidence, even though the dots do seem to connect. But let's ignore that. Let's ignore the fact that the dots seem to connect and point to one particular country who's able to do this and get away with it. This is not any different than 9/11. Over there they brought a building down. Okay, over here they just blew up the building. And over there they blamed it upon terrorists, Muslim terrorists. Over here they're blaming it on, there were already explosives in that building and everybody knew that. So it must have been that. There couldn't have been any ulterior motive. So what does this mean for me and you? First of all, we should do dua for the Muslims in Lebanon. Second of all, we should realize that if there are people in Lebanon saying, oh yeah, that was in Israel, we should know they're hypocrites amongst us. They're dual-faced people amongst us. They're informants amongst us. There are people who are ready to backstab and hide the truth amongst us. There are people like that amongst us, and the Quran is very clear about that. Very clear. And in a situation like you have in Lebanon, many people are willing to sell themselves. So you can't believe what you hear based upon people of authority. You have to believe based upon what you see and observe, and what what you know of what's really happening in the world through the kalam of Allah and the saying of His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Hajj has been stopped. Salah has been broken. And we know what's happening in Syria. Now we know what's happening in Lebanon. And this is all going towards Malhamatul Kubra, the great wars. And so for Muslims in Lebanon, for Muslims in Syria, they need to follow the hadith where the Prophet says best to stay home. Be in a form of a jama'ah to be able to protect yourself. Okay? But do not be in the form of a jama'ah to be offensive against other Muslims. And be in the form of a jama'ah so you can one day, in the right opportunity, at the right time, stand up and establish the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that you can stand up and defend Islam, and you can eradicate the enemies of Islam. This is what needs to be done. The enemies of Islam. But for that, Muslims have to get strong themselves. They have to increase their iman. Now you saw where these explosions happened. in the malls and everyone, all the ladies are half covered. You're mocking the Sharia of Allah, and they're laughing at you, right? They're looking at you and they're laughing at you. Ha ha! You fell for our trick to get half naked. Be like apes, meaning be naked. Apes, you know, kunu qiradatan khasi'in. Be apes that are despised. Then how will the help of Allah come? When we are breaking the Sharia of Allah, and then our enemies are laughing at us that we fell into the dunya and the entertainment and everything that they were selling to us, and we bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. We bought it. And so, that is also a lesson for us to get ready. And it is in each of these events that takes place needs to wake us up more, individually, more and more realization that this is happening, and more realization that you need to be in the form of a jama'ah. This is what the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, especially about the end of times. And you have to be able to not kill other Muslims no matter what, even if they come into your houses. You need to be like the Prophet said, be like the other son of Adam, who let himself die but didn't kill the Muslim. Because these situations, coronavirus, economic sanctions, and then economic disparity, and then now these blasts will lead Muslims in a situation where they will be willing to kill one another. According to one narration, the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a person will give up even his father's brother, will kill him, will be willing to kill his own relatives in order to protect themselves. So this is very important, that Muslims be aware that we, at no cost, we will hurt each other. And this is where the extremist groups, you know, that are also a part of the foreign invasion to corrupt Islam, and part of the foreign invasion to trick us, where we make the blood of other people halal through the idea of takfir. So, brothers and sisters, we're entering into a very, very dangerous time. Very dangerous time. And that time before the malhama, that time where the economic crisis of the world will lead to a real war. Currency conflict will lead into a physical conflict. Currency conflict and economic stagnation, economic depression will then lead countries into a situation where they have no choice but to fight one another. And in the meantime, Imran al-Bayt al-Maqdis, Jerusalem, is going to be rising. And this is not far from the footsteps of the Saudi family that this is all happening. And the fire will catch on. And the fire has been catching on. Anyone who knows the scenario understands that how the fire has been catching on. So I'll end here today. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات.